Good morning.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for joining us. Again, if you have a question for Coach Longo, please use the raise hand function. Dina King, go ahead. Lead us off.
Hey, Coach. You guys didn't really hit on the long ball against Duke. Was that more what they were doing, or was it Sam checking down and hitting his backs and the underneath stuff?
It's both. We had some opportunities to go downtown. Emory got the jump on a corner early in the game. That was a huge play on the second drive that led to a touchdown. And so we had Diami open that we overthrew. He and Daz were screaming on both of those plays. I think they didn't give us a lot of opportunities. We took advantage of a couple of them. And again, when you play so soft and you give us grass underneath, we just got to do a good job of breaking off our routes and settling in and getting the ball to them underneath. And the one thing that we are very, very fortunate to have is when we can't complete the deep ball, and we have to throw that intermediate throw between 8 and 15 yards or so, our guys are so prolific with the football after the catch. So sometimes throwing it at 12, 13, 14 yards turns into a 30 or 40-yard gain anyway, because Chaffrey and Diami and Daz and Downs and all those guys can make plays in the open field along with our running back. So it's just a matter of putting the ball in the grass where they give it to us and letting our athletes go do their work.
Thank you.
All right. Our next question will come from Ross Martin.
Hey, Phil. Just wondering, man, on Javonte Williams, are there things that he still does that surprise you? Obviously, he had a pretty amazing game against Duke on Saturday.
Javonte is an amazing football player. He's and I say this every week now. We talk about them. They're so well-rounded, and that's what makes them the weapons that they are. Both of them pass protect very well. And not everybody thinks about that with regards to running backs, but they do a great job there. And then their weapons out of the backfield. And that was an emphasis, just even for me personally, was to get them the ball more outside of just running the football. And it was an offensive emphasis. And I think we've been able to do that this year. And then, there's such huge mismatches in one-on-one scenarios out in open grass. And that's kind of the same thing I was talking about with the receivers. So we're trying to spread people out because we want to get these guys the ball in open space. And then we don't have to coach. We get to watch them be athletes and do the things that they do so well. That's why we recruited them. And that's the whole basis of the offense, is to create grass and get them the ball in grass and let them do their thing. So far, I think those guys have shown that they're about as well-rounded as you could ask any running back to be. When
you got here in 2019, did you kind of see this from Javonte, or what did you expect from him? Because obviously I think he's exceeded everyone's expectations.
Well, it's interesting with Javonte. His development has been I've done a couple interviews about DK Metcalf in the last few weeks, and I really liken Javonte relative to his position to DK's kind of development, just because they both were very, very impressive athletes and very good players at their relative positions. But to see the improvement, I think the biggest thing for Javonte, and he'd probably tell you the same thing, and I'm just repeating what he told me, is just his confidence level and his own ability has grown exponentially over the last 2 years. And I think he knows right now he can run the ball on anybody. He can catch the football. He runs good routes. He has confidence in his own pass protection. So, he's a quiet, come to work, lunch pail, grind it out all week long. We've heard that, and that's how he plays. And he's not overly emotional, but he's really, really good, and he's extremely consistent. I think that lends to his poise out on the field.
Great, thank you.
Our next question will come from Andrew Jones.
Hey, Coach. Last week, one of the points of emphasis was keeping Duke's prolific pass rush off of Sam. I believe they had just one sack. What did you guys do up front to have success keeping Duke from getting to Sam?
We established the run game. That helps. And we threw the ball a bunch in the beginning. I think 14 of the first 20 plays were passes, but only 7 of them were called pass plays. They just they were RPOs or throws that we had that Sam took because they were there. But we wanted to throw the ball a little bit off the run game. We wanted to get some quick triggers out to the receivers in the slots so that Sam's not holding the football. And then we were able to do that also with the running backs in some key third down situations. And then our offensive line they played some good football now. I think, Austin Richards had his hands full and he battled all game. Jordan Tucker gave us 20 or so reps, didn't know if he was going to play last week. So that was a bonus, and our guys did a good job in drop back protection on Saturday and against a very, very good defensive line. So that was the emphasis last week when y'all asked me, and we worked on it all week long. And that's the area of the game I thought we got better at last week, and it paid great dividends on Saturday.
Did you keep Garrett Walston back a little bit more to help with pass protection? And how did he do if you did do that?
Garrett did a good job. We did keep him in the box. I know Coach Brown alluded to that earlier. He helped us in terms of giving us 6 to 7 man protection at times when we felt like we needed it to trigger the ball down the field a little bit. And he was actually open on 2 routes. Somebody flashed ahead of him in one play, and on the second one, I think we didn't see him over the middle with the official there. So we had 2 shots to target him. It didn't happen, but for the most part, Garrett played fairly well on Saturday. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, let's go over to CL Brown.
CL.
Hi, Phil. I was curious, how much responsibility, we overlook centers a lot in general in football. How much responsibility do you heap on Brian Anderson in terms of, making those pre-snap blocking reads?
Well, you know what I'm going to say. We try to keep the offense simple, so our guys are not frozen mentally and can't go play fast and instinctively and physically up front, especially. But with that being said, probably the greatest mental burden is still placed on the center, like most offenses. And he is a veteran now. I mean, he worked his butt off early on last season when he wasn't starting to know all the calls, study all the fronts from a run standpoint and a protection standpoint, CL. And this year it just comes much more naturally. I think, he very readily IDs fronts and understands maybe even before he's told how we want to block something up because he's been there and he's seen all of these scenarios so often. And I think he's playing with a lot of confidence this year. And so he's our quarterback up front, obviously, and Sam's the guy behind the center.
And what would you say? I mean, would you say that is the strength of his game? Just that experience and that confidence he has now, having been through enough to understand what's going?
I'd say yes, and also he's an overachiever. I mean, he's a high effort guy. He's a real high effort guy, and he's knowledge is power. So he starts the playoff really getting everybody geared up for what we need to do, and then because of his size, I think he knows he's got to have great effort all the time. And he's not the tallest guy out there, and so he understands what the weaknesses are, and he works hard to overcome those, and he's done that. And I think he's given us a very, very stable, very intelligent center in the offense. And in addition to that, I'd say his leadership this year has grown since last year as well. And he's a big part of, I think Michael Carter and Sam Howell and Brian Anderson are probably our biggest 3 leaders on the offensive side. So I would definitely include him in that group.
Thanks, Coach.
Our next question is from Taylor Vippolis.
Hey, Coach. What's it been like for you to see a player like Emery Simmons wait his turn behind some great receivers, and now he's emerging and making most of every opportunity?
So I'll tell you this: when every coach says work your tail off and bide your time, wait your turn, and keep preparing as if you're the starter, be ready when you get your opportunity. You have all those cliches, right? But Emery Simmons is a fantastic example of a player that comes to practice every day, works really, really hard, spends a lot of time after practice on his own trying to perfect, the different things that he needs to do with regards to releases and all that stuff, and catches balls off the jugs and does a lot of extra work on his own time. And, he's getting an opportunity now and he's productive, and I don't know if his 40 time is faster than Joffrey Brown. I don't know if he's taller than Diami. I don't know if he's bigger or stronger than, Bo Corrales. But overall, he's a really good total package guy. He can block, he can run routes, he's got very good hands. And, he's at times playing because he's in the rotation. At times he's played because of injury. But now I think he's starting to establish himself as a guy that can be very productive at this level. And so we're thrilled about it. I mean, we all love him personally. And so, you root for guys like that. So now he's kind of created his own little niche in our offense. And I think you'll see Emory on and off the field for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, Greg Barnes, go ahead.
Hey, Phil. Wake Forest has forced 15 turnovers this season. What are they doing defensively that is allowing their players to get in position to make those kind of plays?
Well, the one unique thing, and we felt this way about Wake Forest last year, they are tremendous fundamental football team. And I haven't been there. I don't know what their defensive practice looks like. But what I envision is there's a huge emphasis on pursuit. There's a huge emphasis on tackling. There's a huge emphasis on block destruction. I think there's a huge emphasis. Wouldn't surprise me if they have a fairly extensive strip circuit that they go through. It's something it's obvious that they emphasize and they work on. And I'm sure that comes from the culture that coach develops. I'm sure it comes from the fact that they emphasize it during the week, and they do a really, really good job of getting the ball out. And so they force you, not just in the turnover area, but they force you on every level to be really, really fundamentally sound. And if you don't, they're going to take advantage of it. So where they may give up a little complexity, they know what the weaknesses are in their defense. They do a good job of defending those weaknesses, and they do a good job of getting the ball out. And so we're going to have to do a fantastic job ball security-wise, which so far, right, we've done a good job of protecting the football this year, and that's going to have to continue at Wake Forest if we want to give ourselves an opportunity to win that football game.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Adam Smith, go ahead.
Hey, Phil. With Wake's defensive front and Boogie Basham specifically, what do you see as the challenge there with trying to get that guy blocked? And are there any similarities with his game and those bookend defensive ends that you faced against Duke?
I think the concern about the defensive line is the same. We were very concerned about 96 and 51 last week. The other guys don't get a lot of notoriety at Wake Forest, but they do a good job. And, they're solid, and the other D end is a really good football player. 9 does stand out. He flashes. He's probably the guy that flashes the most on film when you watch him. He's gotten bigger, I believe, since last year. He could be a 2-gap player if he wanted to be, if they ask him to be. He can take C-gap away by position and then squeeze your tackle and take B-gap away. So he's a valuable player for them. I think he's twitchy. He can move. He can get off and change direction, and he's physical enough to stand in and play physical football. So we have to know where 9 is all the time. I think that's a huge physical matchup for our tackles. And they do a good job of utilizing his strengths with regards to playing him to the field a lot. And I think we're going to have to do a good job establishing some physicality on the line of scrimmage with the offensive line early in the game to do what I think we want to do on offense.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Our last question for Coach comes from Gregory Hall.
Hey, Phil, I'm curious what you've seen out of the Wake Forest secondary that has allowed them to be so successful shutting down their opponents this season. I believe they're allowing the fewest yards per pass attempt in the ACC this season.
Well, not only are they allowing the fewest yards per pass attempt, but they have very few explosive plays. against them defensively this year. They do a really good job of quieting the offense a little bit, and they're going to stop the run first. They are not going to give up the deep ball, and they rally to everything, and they squeeze space with effort. And I think from a secondary standpoint, they have a lot of starters back. I think they have 8 back, so they're used to playing with each other. They know we're not going to change what we do. I think they had us mapped out pretty good last year, and they did a good job of squeezing space and putting some pressure on Sam. And I thought early on in the game they did a good job of really condensing the run game. So we have some of the same challenges that we had last year. From a matchup standpoint, we would love for them to get in cover 1 and man us up. We obviously feel good with our guys in that scenario. I don't see them doing that. That's not really in their wheelhouse this year. So they're going to make us earn the yards. They're going to probably force us, much like we had to earlier in the season, to put together longer drives and be more disciplined. And so that'll be the challenge going into Saturday's game. How disciplined can we play football offensively against Wake Forest defense?
Good deal. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coach Longo, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
You got it. Have a great week.